Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
Introduction. On a cool autumn evening, the small town of Maplewood held an air of unsettling calm. Nestled between rolling hills and dense woods, it was a place where neighbors knew one another. The streets, usually filled with laughter and the sounds of children playing, now echoed a different story, a haunting silence that replaced the usual warmth. A dark cloud loomed over the community, birthed by a tragedy that would unravel lies and secrets beneath the town's picturesque facade. At approximately 7:00 p.m. on October 12, 2023, the Maplewood Police Department received an urgent call. A local woman, Jennifer Hart, was reported missing. Friends stated that she had not returned home after her afternoon jog. As officers arrived at the Hart residence, they found Jennifer's husband, Mark, visibly distraught. He spoke in fragmented sentences, occasionally breaking down as he recounted the last time he saw her when she left with nothing but her phone and earbuds, eager for a routine escape into the serenity of Maplewood's winding trails. As searches were initiated in the familiar woods that bordered the town, police found themselves engulfed in a community that was both supportive and fearful. Searchers combed through fallen leaves and narrow paths, their flashlights piercing the encroaching darkness. Whispers spread among the gathered crowd. Did she run into trouble? What if she was taken? The eerie nature of the unfolding mystery wrapped around Maplewood, and a shared vulnerability settled heavily in the air. Jennifer's fate would soon ignite a complex investigation that would bring forth mysteries buried deep and silence long prolonged. Little did they know, they were about to open a Pandora's box of secrets within their own neighbor. The victim. Jennifer Hart was not just another name in Maplewood. She was a vibrant soul woven into the fabric of the community. At 33, she was a beloved elementary school teacher, admired for her genuine affection for her students and her unwavering dedication. She had a laugh that could brighten the gloomiest of days, and an enthusiasm that resonated with everyone around her. As friends and neighbors gathered at her home, they painted a picture of a woman full of life, overflowing with dreams and aspirations. But behind Jennifer's infectious smile lay shadows that only a handful knew. Whispered secrets that would soon surface in the glare of the investigation. Mark, her husband of nearly 10 years, described her as adventurous and spirited, one who embraced each day with vigor. Yet there were signs that all was not pristine within their marriage. Subtle changes had arisen over recent months: late nights at work from Mark, less enthusiasm for family dinners, and, most troubling, Jennifer's occasional bouts of anxiety that had intensified. The police uncovered her social media presence, where her posts painted a contrasting story. Happiness radiated from pictures of family vacations and weekend hikes, yet there were cryptic messages, hinting at frustrations and loneliness, that begged for interpretation. The road to joy is often paved with sorrow, read one post, shared just a week before her disappearance. It resonated like a warning sign, overlooked by her followers. As officers interviewed friends and accomplices, they learned that on the surface, life appeared idyllic. However, it masked an underlying unease. Was there something more beneath the smiles? The closer the detectives looked, the more they wondered. Who truly knew Jennifer Hart? And what, if anything, did that knowledge portend for her fate? Each answer birthed more questions, teasing the edges of a mystery that was hardly simplistic. The crime scene. As the sun began to rise, casting a pallid gray hue over the dense canopy of trees, a heavy silence enveloped the search crews combing the outskirts of Maplewood. It was here in the dense underbrush bordering the Maplewood Trail where the first signs of foul play would emerge, drawing the town deeper into a swirling storm of uncertainty and fear. A local hiker, drawn from the path by an inexplicable instinct, stumbled upon something nestled amid the ivy and fallen leaves. The blood-stained fabric of a woman's running shoe caught the early morning light, glimmering a sinister red against the muted earth tones of fog. An uneasy thrill shot through him as he recognized it from the photographs shared by Jennifer Hart's signature workout gear. He stepped back, heart racing, and dialed 911 with trembling hand. Within minutes, law enforcement arrived, and the atmosphere shifted from a collaborative search for a missing person to the grim presence of a crime scene. It became imperative to secure the area, marking boundaries with yellow tape that fluttered in the crisp morning breeze. The atmosphere was thick with apprehension as detectives assembled, their gazes sharp and professional, trained to observe the tiniest details that could shift the narrative of the case. Every step they took inside the delineated perimeter was deliberate. Some scoured the ground for additional evidence, while others documented the unfolding scene. They found the unmistakable signs of a struggle. Nearby vegetation had been trampled, the marks in the earth suggesting a violent confrontation. But there was no sign of Jennifer. A forensic team began meticulously collecting evidence, each photograph and sample, an essential piece of a larger puzzle. With every moment that passed, the reality of incarceration punctured the heart of Maplewood. What had begun as a routine job had morphed into something darker. And as the sun rose higher, the shadows of doubt spread, pulling in friends and enemies alike. The search was no longer just for a missing wife and mother. It was a desperate race against the emerging truth zone that would shatter the quiet everyday lives of those who called Maplewood home. The early investigation. As daylight fully enveloped the scene, the gravity of the situation intensified. Lead investigator Detective Sarah Caldwell stood at the border of the crime scene, every detail of the unfolding investigation weighing heavily on her mind. With 2 decades on the force, she had seen her fair share of cases. But the mystery of Jennifer Hart, a teacher known and loved by many, felt profoundly personal. The sobering reality that a member of their small town was in peril stirred an urgency within the department. Caldwell's first step was to compile a timeline, retracing Jennifer's steps on that fateful evening. She initiated interviews with family, colleagues, and friends. Each story shared began to build a mosaic of Jennifer's life, filled with love, laughter, and, as it turned out, underlying tension. Mark Hart's channeling of worry acted as a double-edged sword. While his distress appeared genuine, certain discrepancies in his timeline drew Caldwell's attention. Over in the nearby coffee shop, friends gathered, chattering nervously about Jennifer's absence. When pressed, they recalled a recent altercation between Jennifer and an anonymous figure in the community, a man whose name dripped with darkness and secrets. It was whispered among the tight-knit circle that he had become fixated on Jennifer's vibrant enthusiasm, a small-town infatuation gone raw. It wasn't long before Caldwell learned that this man, confused and menacing, had taken a combative stance towards Jennifer, claiming she had wronged him in some intangible way. Back in the station, digital footprint specialists sifted through Jennifer's online activity, desperate for anything that could provide insight into her last days. The results were telling. Unclear what ominous messages flooded her social media, hinting at deeper emotional struggles leading up to her disappearance. A phone call from Jennifer's sister also brought news of a troubling email Jennifer had sent concerning her mental health, revealing that she had been overwhelmed, perhaps even considering reaching out for help. As information piled up, the detectives found themselves at a crossroads. Time was slipping away as they contended with hidden conflicts, unaccounted motivations, an array of incomplete narratives. Each lead threatened to pull the investigation in new, unsettling directions, and Caldwell knew they were venturing into a labyrinth where the truth lay obscured behind a veil of fear, desperation, and unexpressed pain. It was a reminder of the fragile balance the residents of Maplewood walked, a weighty reality that pulsed within the heart of the town. The dead ends. Days turned into a week, yet hope for Jennifer's safe return grew dimmer with each passing hour. Detective Sarah Caldwell was acutely aware of the pressure mounting from the media, the community, and the family, all demanding answers that seemed just outside of reach. As the investigation trudged on, Caldwell found herself grappling with an unsettling pattern of dead ends. The initial leads, once buzzing with promise, dulled in their clarity as investigators chased down every whispered rumor and half-formed subject. The man who had once fixated on Jennifer turned out to be a red herring. His alibi was solid, as he had been out of town for the entirety of the time Jennifer had gone missing. Though he was questioned thoroughly, there was a sense of relief in confirming he was not the monster they feared. Yet the relief was short-lived. It simply pushed the search for answers back into the murk of uncertainty. Further inquiries into Jennifer's workplace yielded only whispers and wary eyes. Colleagues were eager to help, but hesitant to commit to hard information, some recalling minor disagreements over student projects and petty grievances, but nothing that hinted at hostility or danger. The tension in the air at the school left Caldwell skeptical. Were these friends truly unaware, or were they circling the wagon? Then there were Jennifer's social media accounts, which provided a wealth of details but none of the clarity they sought. The vague messages she shared, paradoxical, glimmering with hope one minute before plunging into despair the next. Each post felt like searching for treasure in an ever-tightening noose, revealing more questions than answers. Who was she confiding in? Who else was grappling with the weight of her silenced turmoil? A futile search of the trail where his shoe was found produced no additional evidence. A frustrating silence filled with the rustling of leaves, mocking the investigators' efforts. Only loose detritus, discarded trash, and scattered remnants of past visitors remained. Caldwell had minimal options left. Reports from disgruntled partners and entangled relationships were important, but each new layer of inquiry insisted that the reality might be even harsher than anticipated. The dead ends were beginning to feel like a suffocating shroud. Yet Caldwell understood that within each quiet moment of despair lay the seed of determination. The truth that buried itself within the dark recesses was waiting to be illuminated, and regardless of the path ahead, a relentless resolve grew within her. To find Jennifer Hart and uncover what lay hidden beneath the surface of their quaint little town. A break in the case. Just as the memories of Jennifer Hart began to feel like a fading photograph, hope arrived unexpectedly during a routine follow-up at a local hardware store. Detective Sarah Caldwell was there on a hunch, questioning employees about any unusual purchases or activity related to Jessica's case. Behind the counter, a clerk named Tom hesitantly linked to Jennifer's disappearance to an incident that had unfolded just days prior. Tom, typically reticent, blinked hard, calling a peculiar interaction he had witnessed when a man entered the store. It was short, but unsettling. An angry customer, arguing with Jennifer about something he believed she had done. The details were sparse, with the man's face somewhat blurred in Tom's memory. But his fervor sharp, leaving an undeniable imprint. The clerk produced a dusty old ledger and unassuming book storing records of the store's transactions, dated right around the time of Jennifer's disappearance. With a sharp intake of breath, Caldwell pored over the pages, her pulse quickening as she spotted an entry. An unusual purchase stood out among the mundane supplies. A roll of duct tape and a heavy-duty tarp. The date was just before Jennifer's last known whereabouts, and the registered customer's name sent a shiver down her spine. It belonged to Jeremy Sloan, a local contractor with a history of erratic behavior, a man who had in the past caught the attention of police for stalking several women in town. Intrigued yet cautious, Caldwell dutifully gathered every scrap of information on Jeremy. It soon became evident that he had a checkered past, not just encounters with the law. No, but also alarming comments made under his breath, often directed toward women like Jennifer. Feeling the shift in the narrative, Caldwell arranged for surveillance of Jeremy's home. They staked out his modest house, weather-worn with unkempt garden sand, waited with bated breath. Hours turned into days, but finally, their patience paid off. They observed Jeremy pulling into his driveway late one night, quickly disposing of what appeared to be a large black bag into a nearby dumpster before retreating inside. Fingers trembling, Caldwell relayed the information back to the station as they prepped to ensure a thorough search would begin at sunrise. This was their chance. Digging deeper into Jeremy's life promised to unveil a landscape filled with red flags. But first, they needed to confirm their worst suspicion. As the sun dipped below the horizon and tensions rose, Caldwell knew they were on the precipice of something monumental. With an array of unanswered questions and chilling possibilities hanging in the air, the investigation was about to delve into its most dangerous chapter yet. The hunt for truth now stirred, with a renewed sense of urgency, and the specter of a Jennifer Hart loomed ever nearer. The suspect, as dawn broke over Maplewood, casting long shadows across Jeremy Sloan's front lawn, Detective Sarah Caldwell and her team moved with steely determination. The urgency in their hearts propelled them forward, ready to confront the man whose name now encapsulated their greatest fears regarding Jennifer Hart's fate. Armed with search warrants and evidence from the hardware store, they approached his front porch, the air thick with tension. When the officers knocked, their stance was resolute. It was Jeremy himself who opened the door, a flicker of surprise clouding over his features. The officers wasted no time, introducing themselves and notifying him of their intentions. Caldwell studied his body language carefully. A slight twitch of his jaw hinted at concealed anxiety. The bravado painted over his words felt like armor, and her gut told her it was all an act. With warrant in hand, the investigators entered the home, the dim interior illuminated only by slivers of light peeking through the drawn curtains. They combed through the living space, a modest arrangement tinged with signs of neglect. Cobwebs hung from high corners. Discarded takeout containers littered surfaces. Yet in the corners of the room, something caught Caldwell's keen eye. A few pieces of outdoor equipment lay untouched: fishing rods, gardening tools, but the sight of new-looking rolls of duct tape still pressed tightly in plastic, struck a cold chord deep within her. As the lead investigator interrogated Jeremy, asking about his purchases and whereabouts on the day Jennifer vanished, his responses were evasive, riddled with inconsistency. He attempted to weave a narrative of innocence, claiming ignorance of Jennifer's existence. But Caldwell already knew too much. She pressed harder. "You bought duct tape and a tarp. What were they for?" Jeremy shifted, his body betraying him with a slight tremor, but he laughed it off, deflecting. "Just some home projects." The longer their conversation lingered, the more Caldwell felt the putrid weight of lies saturate the air around them. It wasn't merely denial enunciated in his voice. There was a palpable discomfort, an unease that throbbed with a deeper fear. She scrutinized his eyes, searching for cracks in the facade, and the way he avoided direct answers only affirmed her suspicions. Jeremy knew more than he let on. After what felt like a lifetime, Caldwell and her team wrapped up the initial questioning. They left Jeremy visibly shaken, yet resolute, muffled silence settling over them like a shroud as they filed back into the blinding light of morning. As they prepared to drag Jeremy's property, it was clear they were grappling with a simmering storm. He may have evaded capture in the throes of their first inquiry, but his time was running out. The search that followed would soon reveal what lay hidden beneath the surface: redemption, danger, or perhaps the scariest answer of all, a devastating end to Jennifer Hart's story lingering just out of reach. The trial. The courtroom doors swung shut with a weighty finality, echoing through the solemn hall as spectators took their seats. Anticipation sharp in the air, the trial of Jeremy Sloan ignited a maelstrom of interest in Maplewood, a town that once thrived on the simple pleasures of small-town charm, now caught in the throes of a horror story playing out publicly. It was a moment that felt surreal, punctuated by the low hum of whispered discussions and anxious glances exchanged among friends and family. Detective Sarah Caldwell sat among the onlookers, her heart heavy. She had dedicated herself to the pursuit of truth in Jennifer Hart's case. Every witness and piece of evidence had become a part of her resolve. Now, as Sloan faced charges of abduction and murder, she reflected on the harrowing evidence gathered over the past months. The trial would bring the secrets of their town to light, painful revelations that had shifted everything they believed. The prosecution opened with a meticulously detailed account of Jennifer's last known movements, painting a vivid picture of her life. Friends and family took the stand, sharing memories that wove Jennifer's absence into a tapestry of loss. Mark Hart, his grief palpable, spoke of his beloved wife. The audience wept as he recounted fragrance-filled nights filled with laughter, contrasting with the chilling emptiness the town now faced. Then came the forensic evidence, the taping of Jeremy's purchases, the undeniable link between him and the scenes where Jennifer had disappeared. Caldwell's heart raced as expert testimonies confirmed that traces of Jennifer's DNA had been found on the tarp and duct tape recovered from his residence. The air felt thick, the reality of their findings crashing onto everyone present like a wave of grief. But Jeremy's defense team was relentless, presenting an alternate narrative. They sought to cast doubt on Caldwell's investigation, arguing that evidence could have been mishandled or planted. Witnesses testified to Jeremy's lack of an established motive. Emotions ran high as his lawyer painted him as a victim of circumstance, a scapegoat in a witch hunt steeped in small-town lore. Tension escalated, the courtroom itself becoming a battleground of control, emotions erupting as family members of both parties struggled to contain their mounting frustrations. With each witness brought forth, Caldwell watched Jeremy's expressions twist between arrogance and desperation. Flickers of a man ensnared in his own web of deception. As the prosecution approached its closing argument, Caldwell sat transfixed, knowing that the culmination of months of work rested now on the jury's shoulders. It was a crossroads, a tug-of-war between the fact and fiction, common sense against the darkness lurking beneath their small-town veneer. Following deliberations that stretched into the night, the jury returned. The jury returned. Silence blanketed the courtroom as they filed in, every eye glued to the foreman. The weight of hope and despair clashed like titans. Guilty echoed through the hall, the singular words shattering the air like glass. Tears fell freely as cries erupted from Jennifer's family. Caldwell felt her own heart swell with a bittersweet ache. Justice was served, but the cost weighed heavily on them all. The battle to restore normalcy in Maplewood would be long, but today they had begun to mend the fractures that the shadows of fear had wrought. In the wake of it all, the memory of Jennifer Hart would inspire not only sorrow, but the unwavering pursuit of truth, one that should never be forsaken again. The aftermath. In the weeks that followed the trial, Maplewood bore the scars of a community forever changed by the tragedies it had confronted. The whispers that once floated casually through the air had transformed into heavy discussions over coffee tables and park benches. Tales of both loss and resilience threading into the very essence of the town. Life marched on, yet it was imbued with a solemn respect for the fragility of existence, the beauty and horror woven tightly together. Detective Sarah Caldwell kept her distance from the public eye, having delivered justice but still facing the payload of sorrow that flowed from it. She dedicated time to self-reflection, confronting the darker corners of her own mind that had been awakened by the case. Each time she stepped out into the world, she felt the weight of Jennifer's absence tucked into her soul, a reminder of the fleeting moments of joy that could be snatched away. Jennifer's memorial service became an emotional reckoning, drawing family and friends to honor her life and the love she had shared. The school auditorium brimmed with familiar faces, each sharing laughter between tears, recounting memories that flickered like candlelight. Each story a testament to her impact. The community came together, united in grief yet buoyed by an undercurrent of hope, a collective promise to each other that they would forge ahead while cherishing the spirit that Jennifer had instilled. Meanwhile, Mark Hart faced an uphill battle of his own. The loss of his wife left an indelible mark on his heart. Each day unfolded anew, layered with an absence that was both haunting and help. Friends supported him, guided him through both despair and the daunting task of rediscovering himself in a world where Jennifer's laughter no longer echoed through their home. He began attending support groups and sought the solace of counseling, grasping for the fragments of himself that remained. As for Jeremy Sloan, his sentencing served as a grim punctuation mark on a story that shattered the community's very fiber. Reflecting on a life marred by darkness, he faced the consequences of his actions, swallowing the bitter pill of accountability. Behind bars, he became a cautionary tale, a source of discord that lingered in hushed tone. The whispers in Maplewood transitioned from fear to awareness as residents embraced a newfound vigilance. Yet, amidst the shrouded sorrow, glimmers of resilience began to rise. Programs aimed at mental health awareness flourished, encouraging open dialogues about struggles often hidden in the shadows. The community banded together, forging connections over shared truths. They transformed pain into purpose, creating spaces where voices could be lifted, where stories of vulnerability intertwined with tales of strength. As autumn leaves fell to the ground, Caldwell walked the familiar trails where she had once searched for answers, inhaling the crisp air, rich with the scent of pine. Though scarred, the town unfurled in front of her like a canvas, streaked with the hues of grief, but now ripe for renewal. The lessons learned would imprint upon them, a reminder that darkness could be confronted, that resilience could bloom even amidst despair. Maplewood would never be the same, but in its heart, a spark of hope flickered eternally, brighter promise to live fully, love fiercely, and rally against the quiet urgencies of life. In the nexus of pain and recovery, they would rise together, bound by the memory of Jennifer Hart, forever cherished, reminding them to seek the light amidst the shadows. Reflection. As the last hues of sunlight faded into the horizon, Detective Sarah Caldwell sat on her porch, a steaming cup of tea cradled between her hands. The rhythmic chirping of crickets filled the evening air, a reminder of the fleeting nature of light and life. In her mind, she replayed the events of the past months, the worries, the search, the trial, and ultimately, the quiet struggles of a community steeped in grief. The harsh reality of what had transpired in Maplewood would forever linger in the corners of her heart. Yet she felt an enduring clarity surfacing amidst the sadness. Each loss reverberated across the landscape of her memories despite the dark days. There was a power in vulnerability that surged through those communities, would come together in pain. She contemplated the human spirit, ever resilient, seeking to heal and to reconnect. The bonds cultivated through as she watched families navigate their own roads to recovery. Caldwell marveled at the beauty of the human experience, its ability to rise, to reclaim joy, and to cherish love, even in the aftermath of